Hi, I'm Karen from Cafe Bebe, and I'm addressing the issue today of sex after children. I would like to add a disclaimer that my mother and father and stepmom and any other family members can feel free to move on to the next topic, because I'm not going to go into any great detail, but now I'm a little bit embarrassed to think that you might actually be watching this, so feel free to fast forward. At BritMums, we're addressing the topic of sex after children, and I thought I would weigh in on my thoughts on this subject. As I'm currently pregnant with our second child, obviously there hasn't been a complete lack of activity on this topic, because something had to happen to get us to this state. However, I would heartily agree that after children, life does change. If you hearken back to the early days of your relationship, you remember, and I think this is what the problem is between men and women on this subject, but men remember those early days where you can't keep your hands off each other, you can't get enough of each other, you enjoy each other several times a day sometimes, perhaps several times a week. Going to bed is not so much about sleep as it is about enjoyment and pleasure. And it doesn't even have to be in the bed. That's another thing. Anyway, for me personally, when I had our daughter, I felt a bit like, I've said this to many people, friends and other bloggers, that a switch was flipped when I became a mother. Something happened when she was exited from my body, where suddenly I became a mum. And my primary focus was not me, was not my husband, but it was my baby. It was about her needs, her growth, her development, and then, sort of afterwards, came the rest of our life. And both my husband and I are extremely guilty of forgetting us in the equation. Last summer I went through a bit of a bout of depression for a while, kind of lost myself in the blogging world and couldn't figure out who I was anymore. And one of the suggestions, I did do some counseling, one of the suggestions that the counselor had for me and my husband was that we needed to remember ourselves as individuals, but also ourselves as a couple, that we weren't just mummy and daddy anymore, or that we weren't just mummy and daddy, we were also still ourselves, and we were still a couple. And this has been probably the most challenging aspect of our relationship in the last nearly 3 years now. We've only gone out on maybe 2 or 3 dates, so to speak, since our daughter came along, which I guess equals out to about 1 a year. We've tried to make a little more of an effort in the last 6 months to make some time for each other and to try to use the time that we do have together in the evenings and on the weekends to be together and to not have the computer on. I do have a hard time not having the BlackBerry attached to my hand, but I do try to make an effort. And I think that's the key to a relationship, is remembering that you and your husband were a couple first, and your children came afterwards. Doesn't mean that your children are less important, or that you should think about yourselves as individuals or as a couple before your children, but you're still yourselves, and you still need to take time to do things together, to hold hands, which my husband and I do manage to do when it's just the two of us, and to still talk, and not just talk about the kids. I think that's one of the most crucial elements of keeping a relationship successful, is that your conversation shouldn't just be about what your daughter did at nursery that day or what your son did at the playground. It needs to be about what's going on in the world and what's going on in your lives, and what sort of dreams you have and what you hope to do in the future as well. I could also say that it would probably help everyone's sex life if they didn't wear things like this to bed, or one of my husband's personal favorites, although it is extremely comfortable to me, is this gray number that is a sleep dress of sorts. I love how soft the cotton is on it, but he absolutely hates it. He thinks I look like a nun. I don't really feel like my body's in the proper shape to wear any sexy lingerie, but wearing those two items probably doesn't inspire much sexiness in myself or my husband. But I can say that thankfully I have a wonderful husband who still insists that he loves me no matter what I look like or what I think I look like. I think that's more the key. So those are my thoughts and recommendations for you on keeping your marriage successful and fresh and passionate after having children. What are your thoughts? What are your clues? What do you do to keep your relationship hot and sexy, yet still incorporate your family? I wish you luck, and I hope you can share some suggestions on my comments below. Thanks very much. Bye.